My name is Vorik Thane, Senior Ecological Monitor for the Galactic Maritime Council, and I have spent 37 cycles studying aquatic environments across 412 worlds. I have documented species that breathe ammonia, creatures that swim through liquid methane, and organisms that exist in pressurized brine so toxic it would dissolve most known metals in seconds. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what humans call quote-unquote recreational swimming. Let me set the scene for you properly. The year was 2047 by their calendar, approximately 6 months after Earth joined the galactic community. The Maritime Council had been monitoring their planet for decades, fascinated by this bizarre world where 71% of the surface was covered in dihydrogen monoxide. Water. Plain, simple, universal solvent water. Now, you need to understand something crucial here. In all my years of studying aquatic worlds, I had never, not once, encountered a sapient species that voluntarily entered their planet's oceans. Why would they? Water is dangerous. It corrodes. It drowns. It carries diseases and parasites. Every intelligent species in the galaxy evolved on land or in atmosphere, and every single one of them viewed large bodies of water the same way you might view a pit of acid. Sure, you can study it from a distance, maybe build platforms above it, but actually going in, that is what robots and drones are for. The Hydrani, for instance, evolved on a world with vast freshwater seas. Beautiful place, actually. They built their entire civilization on floating platforms, connected by bridges and tunnels, all carefully elevated at least 50 meters above the water's surface. They developed incredible technology for remote aquatic exploration, but the idea of personally entering the water, they find it physically repulsive. Their bodily functions shut down at the mere thought. The Kelthani have oceans of liquid organic compounds on their moon colonies. Gorgeous, really, like swimming pools of amber under triple suns. They mine them, they process them, they build entire industries around them. But touch the stuff personally? They would rather eat glass. So when the human delegation arrived at Station Brine, our primary research facility orbiting the water moon Tethys Prime, we expected them to behave like civilized beings. We prepared the standard accommodations: observation decks with crystal-clear viewing ports, remote submersibles equipped with the finest sensors, climate-controlled laboratories, everything a proper aquatic researcher could want, all safely separated from the actual water by good, solid, reliable walls. The human team consisted of 5 people. There was Captain Elena Vasquez, a stern woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to calculate the structural integrity of everything she looked at. Dr. Raj Patel, their xenobiologist, who smiled too much for someone in such a serious profession. Lieutenant James Kaw, their security officer, built like he was carved from stone. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their engineer who kept disassembling our equipment to see, quote, how it works, unquote. And then there was Milo Brennan. Milo Brennan was their civilian consultant. 28 years old, lean, constantly grinning, with sun-bleached hair and skin tanned dark brown from what I later learned was something called, quote, excessive time outdoors, unquote. His official title was marine biologist. His unofficial title, which I discovered later, was professional crazy person. The problem started within 3 hours of their arrival. We were giving them the standard tour. I was explaining our remote observation protocols, showing them the magnificent view of Tethys Prime's subsurface ocean through the main viewing port, waxing poetic about the bioluminescent colonies we had discovered at depth, when Milo interrupted me. So when do we get wet? He asked. I blinked all 3 of my eyes in confusion. I am sorry. Yeah, you know. He made a strange gesture with his hands, moving them in wave-like motions. When do we actually go into the water? The other humans shifted uncomfortably. Captain Vasquez closed her eyes briefly as if experiencing physical pain. Milo, she said quietly, we discussed this. We discussed you being boring about it. Milo replied cheerfully. We didn't discuss me agreeing. Dr. Patel stepped in smoothly. What my colleague means, Monitor Thane, is that humans have a somewhat different approach to aquatic research than most species. We do occasionally perform direct observation. Direct observation, I repeated slowly. You mean, with enhanced sensor equipment? Perhaps tactile probes. I mean with our bodies, Milo said. Swimming. Diving. Actually being in the water. I felt my respiratory pouches constrict. Around me, my 3 assistants made sounds of distress. Kelvin Ruth, My deputy actually backed away from the human as if whatever madness he carried might be contagious. That is not possible, I said firmly. Tethys Prime's ocean has a temperature of -2 degrees Celsius. The pressure at even shallow depths would crush most organic beings. The water contains dissolved salts and minerals that would damage unprotected skin. And the indigenous microorganisms, while not intentionally harmful, could cause contamination issues. Sounds like a Tuesday, Milo said. Milo, Captain Vasquez said, her voice carrying a warning tone. What? I have dived in worse. Remember that trench on Europa Station? Temperature -4 degrees, pressure 600 atmospheres, and some kind of bacterial film that made everything smell like rotten eggs for a week afterward. We do not speak of Europa Station, Lieutenant Koch said flatly. I held up my hands, trying to regain control of the conversation. Perhaps there has been a miscommunication. You do understand that entering the water directly would require extensive decontamination protocols, specialized suits, emergency extraction procedures. We brought our own gear, Dr. Tanaka interjected. She pulled out a small data pad. We submitted the specifications 3 weeks ago. Environmental suits rated for extreme cold, depth certified to 800 meters, built-in rebreathers, thermal regulation, and full communication systems. They are already cleared by your safety committee. My mandibles clicked in agitation. The safety committee cleared equipment specifications. They did not clear actual usage. Bureaucracy, Milo sighed. The one constant in the universe. Captain Vasquez gave him a sharp look before turning to me. Monitor Thane, I understand this is irregular, but humans have been exploring our own oceans for centuries. We have extensive experience with aquatic environments. We know the risks, and we know how to mitigate them. Your own oceans, I said carefully, which evolved with your species, which your bodies adapted to over millions of years. This is an alien environment. All environments are alien until you visit them, Dr. Patel said gently. That is rather the point of exploration, isn't it? I looked at them. These bizarre creatures who apparently looked at a hostile alien ocean and saw not danger but opportunity. In my 37 cycles of service, I had developed what I thought was a comprehensive understanding of intelligent headbic. This did not fit any known pattern. I will need to consult with my superiors, I said finally. You do that, Milo said, still grinning. We will be in our quarters, not going anywhere, definitely not planning anything, just sitting quietly, like good little humans. The way Captain Vasquez winced at that last statement should have been my first warning. It took 4 hours for my request to move up through the Maritime Council hierarchy, and another 2 for the response to come back down. The answer was, predictably, a masterpiece of bureaucratic fence-sitting. The humans were our guests. The humans had submitted proper documentation. The humans were a new member species, and we should strive to accommodate their cultural practices when possible, but also maintain all safety protocols and document everything. And if something went wrong, it was my responsibility. I love my job. Most of the time, by the time I returned to inform the humans of the decision, I discovered 2 things. First, that they had apparently predicted the bureaucratic delay and spent the time productively by unpacking and testing their equipment. Second, that they had somehow convinced Kelvin Ruth to let them access one of the smaller observation tanks. I found them in Lab 7, which contained a 50,000-liter tank of Tethys Prime ocean water maintained at proper temperature and pressure, stocked with several species of local microorganisms and one small tentacled creature we had been studying. The tank had viewing ports on 3 sides and a sealed access hatch on top. Milo was already wearing what he called a wetsuit, a tight black garment that covered his body from neck to ankles. He was checking a collection of equipment laid out on the deck, air tanks, a mask, fins, various instruments I did not recognize. "Oh good, you're back," he said when he saw me. "What's the verdict? Do I get to play in your pool?" "It is not a pool," I said automatically. "It is a precisely controlled research environment." "So that's a yes?" I sighed, a sound that came out as a whistle through my breathing tubes. "The Council has authorized limited direct contact activities under strict supervision with appropriate safety measures and comprehensive documentation." Boring translation: yes, but everyone is going to watch me and complain about paperwork. Essentially accurate, I admitted. "Perfect." He started pulling on more equipment. "Tell your people to watch the tentacle thing in the corner. Looks like a juvenile Bathyphora, right? We have something similar on Earth. They are curious. They will come investigate me. Not aggressive. Just want to see what the weird new thing is. The specimen is a Keltherus drifter, I corrected. And how could you possibly know its behavior patterns? Bilateral symmetry, distributed nerve clusters, tentacles with suckers on one side only. That is an active predator body plan. But it is small, probably young, in an environment with no prey species. It is bored. Bored and curious is basically the same thing in most intelligent invertebrates. He saw my expression and shrugged. I read a lot. Captain Vasquez and Dr. Patel were helping him with the equipment now. Lieutenant Ko stood by with what looked like a medical kit. Dr. Tanaka was setting up recording devices. How long have you been planning this? I asked Captain Vasquez. Since before we left Earth, she admitted. Milo made a very convincing argument that direct observation would provide data your remote systems miss. What argument was that? He threatened to jump in without permission. I would not have threatened, Milo said, adjusting his mask. I would have just done it. Which is a form of threat, Dr. Patel added. Semantics. I watched as Milo finished his preparations. The equipment looked primitive compared to our remote systems. No quantum sensors, no molecular analyzers, no gravitic stabilizers. Just compressed air, waterproof lights, and what he assured me was a very good diving computer. You are certain about this? I asked one final time. He looked at me through the mask, eyes bright with something that might have been excitement or madness or both. Monitor Thane, I have been diving since I was 12 years old. I have explored coral reefs in the Pacific, ice caves in Antarctica, underwater ruins in the Mediterranean, and thermal vents on 3 different moons. This is what I do. This is what humans do. We see water. We want to know what is in it. Most species see water and want to stay away from it. Most species are missing out. He climbed the ladder to the access hatch. Dr. Tanaka opened it remotely, and a wave of cold, mineral-scented air wafted out. Milo did not hesitate. He checked his equipment one more time, gave us a thumbs-up gesture that I had learned meant affirmation, and stepped into the water. The immediate response was universal shock from every non-human in the room. The water was -2 degrees Celsius. The pressure differential, while not extreme at the surface, would still be uncomfortable. The alien chemistry, the unknown microorganisms, the sheer wrongness of it, and Milo Brennan just sank. Deliberately, calmly, exhaling bubbles descending into the tank like he did this every day, which I later learned he basically did. Vitals are normal, Dr. Patel reported, checking a monitor. Heart rate elevated but within acceptable range. Core temperature stable. Suit integrity good. Through the viewing port I watched Milo maneuver in the water. And here is where I have to admit something. He was graceful, unnaturally so. Where I expected thrashing and panic and awkward movements, he moved like the water was his natural environment. Smooth, efficient, controlled. He descended to the bottom of the tank, approximately 8 meters down, and simply stopped. Neutrally buoyant, hanging motionless in the water column, observing. The Keltherus drifter, as predicted, immediately noticed him. It drifted closer, tentacles spreading in what our research suggested was an exploratory posture. A sensible creature would retreat. Milo held perfectly still. The drifter approached within half a meter, its tentacles extended, gently touching Milo's arm, his tank, his mask. Tasting him, essentially, the way drifters taste their environment. Milo did not move, except to slowly raise one hand. What is he doing? Kelvin whispered beside me. I have no idea, I admitted. The drifter's tentacles wrapped lightly around Milo's hand. For a moment, human and alien creatures simply held that connection, an interaction that our remote instruments would never have captured with this level of detail. Then Milo gently extracted his hand and swam away, giving the drifter space, respecting its boundaries. He spent the next 20 minutes conducting what he later called a survey. He examined the substrate, collected samples of the biofilm growing on the tank walls, observed the behavior of the smaller organisms, all while moving through the water with that same uncanny grace. When he finally surfaced, pulling himself out of the tank and removing his mask, he was grinning even wider than before. That was amazing, he said. Water streaming from his suit. Did you see how the drifter uses its tentacles? Not just tactile, there is definitely chemoreception happening. And the bacterial mats on the walls, they have this whole structure you cannot see from outside. And the water, Even through the suit I could feel the current patterns. There is a thermal layer about 6 meters down that your sensors probably read as uniform, but actually has these little variation pockets. He kept talking, rapid-fire observations, details that our instruments had missed or misinterpreted, insights that came from being in the environment rather than merely observing it. Around me, my staff was frantically taking notes. "You learned all that in 20 minutes?" I asked, incredulous. 23 minutes, he corrected. "And yeah, that is kind of the point. Remote observation is great. Do not get me wrong. You need it for large-scale surveys, dangerous environments, long-term monitoring. But sometimes you need to actually be there. You need to feel how the water moves, see how the light changes with depth. Notice the little things that instruments filter out as noise." Captain Vasquez handed him a towel. "Satisfied?" she asked dryly. "For now," he agreed, "but I have questions about the main ocean." "Of course you do," I muttered. "The current patterns I felt in the tank, they suggest the main ocean has some kind of large-scale circulation, probably driven by thermal gradients from the tidal heating. I would bet there are warm zones near the tectonic boundaries, cold zones near the outer ice shell, which means vertical stratification, which means distinct ecological zones. The remote data shows uniform conditions below 500 meters, but I do not buy it. There is structure down there you are not seeing, and you think you can see it better than our quantum sensor arrays." Kelvin asked, a note of challenge in his voice. "No," Milo said simply. "I think I can see different things than your quantum sensor arrays. Complementary data, not better or worse. Your instruments tell you what the water is made of. I can tell you how it feels to be in it. Both matter." I found myself considering his words. In 3 decades of research, I had never questioned the primacy of remote observation. It was simply how things were done. Safe, controlled, precise. But watching Milo interact with the drifter, seeing him notice patterns in the water that our instruments had classified as irrelevant, I had to wonder what else we might be missing. "The main ocean is significantly more dangerous than a controlled tank," I said carefully. "I would be disappointed if it was not," Milo replied. "Deeper, colder, higher pressure. Unknown currents. Potentially aggressive organisms. No easy extraction if something goes wrong. Hence why we brought proper equipment and trained personnel. It would require extensive planning." "I love planning," he lied. "Multiple safety protocols. Even better, backup plans for the backup plans. Now you are just trying to scare me, and it is not working." I looked at Captain Vasquez, who gave me a helpless shrug. I looked at my staff, who seemed divided between horror and fascination. I looked back at Milo, who was still grinning, dripping water on my nice clean deck, ready to throw himself into an alien ocean just to see what was there. And I realized something. The galaxy had spent millions of years developing sophisticated remote systems precisely because we were terrified of direct contact with hostile environments. We had built walls between ourselves and danger, and called it wisdom. But maybe, just maybe, we had also built walls between ourselves and understanding. "I will submit a proposal for a shallow dive," I said slowly. "Maximum depth 50 meters, full safety team on standby, comprehensive monitoring, and if anything at all goes wrong, we abort immediately and never speak of it again." Milo finished. "Trust me, Monitor Thane, we do not have a death wish. We just have a really intense curiosity wish." Those sound dangerously similar. Only if you are bad at planning. The proposal took another 3 days to wind through the bureaucracy. 3 days during which the humans thoroughly charmed my staff with their enthusiasm, their strange sense of humor, and their complete lack of concern about things that should terrify them. Dr. Tanaka spent hours discussing technical specifications with our engineers. Dr. Patel collaborated with our xenobiologist on classification systems. Lieutenant Ko impressed our security team with his discipline and protocols. And Milo spent every possible moment at the observation windows, staring at Tethys Prime's ocean, planning his dive like other people plan weddings. When approval finally came through, it came with so many restrictions and requirements that the document was 47 pages long. Milo read the first page, skipped to the end, and said, "So basically yes, with paperwork. Perfect." The dive was scheduled for the following morning, local time. We assembled in the main deployment bay, a cavernous space with a moon pool that opened directly to Tethys Prime's ocean 50 meters below the station. The water in the pool looked black and forbidding, lit only by the station's external lights. The human team arrived in full equipment. Milo wore a more advanced suit this time, thicker with integrated heating elements and reinforced joints. His air tanks were larger, his instruments more sophisticated. Dr. Patel and Lieutenant Ko wore similar suits, ready to accompany him. Captain Vasquez and Dr. Tanaka would monitor from the station. My entire staff was present, along with representatives from 3 other departments, 2 safety officers, 1 medical team, and a legal observer. Apparently, watching a human voluntarily enter an alien ocean was the most exciting thing that had happened on Station Brine in 5 years. I ran through the safety checklist for the 3rd time, stalling. Tether lines attached, emergency ascent systems armed, communication check good, medical team standing by, submersible backup in position. Monitor Thane, Captain Vasquez said gently. They are ready. I am aware, I said. I am simply ensuring. You are worried, Milo interrupted, not unkindly. It is okay, this is weird for you. Hell, it is kind of weird for us, and we do this for fun. You do this for fun, Dr. Patel corrected. I do this because someone has to keep you from getting eaten. It's only happened twice. I felt my respiratory pouches constrict again. Small bites, Milo assured me, barely scarred. That is not comforting. Look, he said, more seriously. I know this goes against everything your species considers sensible, and I respect that. I really do. But humans, we have always been explorers. We left the trees, crossed the continents, sailed the oceans, went to space, not because it was safe, because it was there, because we needed to know. This, he gestured at the moon pool. This is just the next ocean. And yeah, it is dangerous, but so is everything worth doing. He sealed his helmet. Dr. Patel and Lieutenant Ko did the same. One by one they approached the edge of the moon pool. Last chance to back out, I offered weakly. Not how we work, Milo replied, his voice now coming through the communications system. See you in an hour, Monitor Thane. Try not to panic. And then, in perfect unison, all 3 humans stepped off the platform and into the alien ocean. The water swallowed them instantly, their lights disappearing into the darkness. Around me, everyone rushed to their monitoring stations. Screens lit up with data, depth, temperature, pressure, heart rates, oxygen levels, suit integrity, everything technical, everything precise. But I stayed at the moon pool edge, looking down into that black water, trying to understand what would make someone do this. What combination of courage and insanity would convince a being to leave safety behind and embrace the unknown? 50 meters, Dr. Tanaka reported, all vitals normal. Through the underwater cameras, I could see their lights now, 3 points of illumination descending through the darkness. The beams caught particles in the water, making it look like they were falling through a star field. Contact with substrate, Milo reported. His voice was calm, almost casual. Bottom composition looks like silicate base, with organic overlay. Temperature holding at -0.5, current moving northeast about a 3 meters per second. Visibility approximately 15 meters. It is beautiful down here. Beautiful, I muttered. It is a freezing alien ocean. Same thing, Milo replied, apparently having heard me. Raj, you seeing this bioluminescence? Confirmed, Dr. Patel's voice came back. Looks like bacterial colonies in the substrate, similar to deep-sea communities on Earth. Taking samples. For the next 45 minutes, I watched the monitors and listened to the humans describe what they found. They spoke in technical terms, yes, but also in metaphors and comparisons, and expressions of wonder that seemed completely inappropriate for scientific observation. The bioluminescent bacteria were like, quote, an upside-down night sky, unquote. The way the current moved through a rock formation was, quote, almost musical, unquote. A small swimming organism they encountered was, quote, cute in an eldritch horror sort of way, unquote. And gradually something strange happened. My staff stopped focusing solely on the technical readings and started actually listening to the descriptions. Started seeing the ocean not as a hostile environment to be avoided, but as a place, a real place, with features and beauty and mystery. Movement at 2 o'clock, Lieutenant Ko reported suddenly. Large, possibly aggressive. The playful tone vanished from the channel. I saw everyone tense. I see it, Milo said. Roughly 3 meters long, multiple appendages, moving laterally, predator morphology. Orders, Lieutenant Ko asked. Hold position. Let it check us out. We are the weird ones here. On the monitor I could see a dark shape circling the humans, staying just beyond the range of their lights. Large, definitely. Moving with purpose. Milo, Captain Vasquez said warningly. I know, but look at its approach pattern. Curious. Not attacking. Staying at distance. Classic unfamiliar encounter behavior. The creature made another pass. Closer this time. I could see it better now. Multiple limbs, sleek body, bioluminescent patches along its flanks. Similar to species we had documented, but larger. It is beautiful, Dr. Patel whispered. It is dangerous, I corrected. Same thing, Milo said again. The creature made one more pass, then, apparently satisfied that the strange visitors were not prey or threat, simply swam away into the darkness. That, Milo said, is exactly why you need people down here. Your instruments would have classified that as potential threat class 3, logged it, and moved on. But we just had a conversation with it. Non-verbal, sure, but real. It looked at us. We looked at it. We came to an understanding. An understanding that it chose not to eat you, I said. Best kind of understanding. They continued their survey, cataloging organisms, taking samples, documenting the alien ecosystem with their instruments and their eyes, and their strange human perspective. And despite 3 decades of training and protocol, I found myself envious. Not of the danger, not of the cold or the pressure or the risk, but of the experience, of being there in that moment, seeing something no one else had seen, feeling the current, watching the bioluminescence, having a quote conversation unquote with an alien predator. Maybe Milo was right. Maybe we had been missing something. Time check, Captain Vasquez announced. 53 minutes. You are approaching your limit. Copy that, Milo replied. Beginning ascent. This was really something. Monitor Thane, thank you. I did nothing but worry. I said, exactly. Thanks for caring enough to worry. They ascended slowly, by the book, stopping at intervals to decompress even though their suits regulated pressure automatically, taking no chances, following every protocol, professional despite their enthusiasm. When they finally emerged from the moon pool, dripping and grinning, I felt relief wash over me like a wave. Well? I asked. Was it worth the risk? Milo removed his helmet, and his expression was almost reverent. Monitor Thane, your remote systems told you there was life at 50 meters. We confirmed that. But what they did not tell you is that it is everywhere. The substrate is not dead rock with some bacteria. It is alive, completely alive, covered in organisms your instruments read as geological features. And the bioluminescence. It is not random. The patterns, the way they pulse and respond to movement, that is communication. A whole language happening right under your sensors. Dr. Patel was nodding enthusiastically. The predator we encountered, I got good imagery. It has sensory organs that suggest magnetic field navigation, which means there is probably a magnetic ecosystem we have not even begun to document. And the current patterns, Lieutenant Coe added, surprising me because he had seemed the most serious of the group. They are creating habitat microniches. Each little eddy, each flow variation, supports different communities. The biodiversity down there is an order of magnitude higher than your surveys suggested. I looked at the data they had collected, then at the data my instruments had collected simultaneously. They were both accurate, but they were describing different things. The instruments gave me facts. The humans gave me context. I need to update our survey protocols, I said slowly. Or, Milo suggested, you could train some of your people to dive. Every non-human in the room made sounds of horror. Yeah, that is about what I expected, Milo laughed. But seriously, think about it. We could teach you. It is learnable. Any species with the right equipment and training could do this. But why would we want to? Kelvin asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Milo thought about that for a moment. Because it changes you, he said finally. I am not saying remote observation is bad. It is necessary, efficient, safe. But when you actually enter the environment, when you feel it around you, when you exist in it even for a little while, you understand it differently. You become part of it instead of just studying it. That sounds terrifying. I admitted. It is, he agreed. It is also incredible. The report I filed that night was the strangest document I had ever written. I included all the technical data, all the new discoveries, all the protocol validations, but I also included something I had never put in an official report before. A A personal observation. Humans, I wrote, approach aquatic environments not as obstacles to be avoided or resources to be exploited, but as places to be experienced. This fundamentally different perspective allows them to gather data and insights that purely remote observation misses. While their methods are unconventional and carry significant risk, the results justify consideration of expanding direct observation protocols. Also, I added, they are completely insane but in a productive way. The next morning, I received a priority message from the Galactic Maritime Council. They had read my report. They had questions. Lots of questions. And they wanted the humans to dive again, this time with full documentation for a possible training program. I looked at Milo over breakfast, watching him cheerfully devour what he claimed was a terrible approximation of eggs, and sighed. "You have created a bureaucratic nightmare," I informed him. "Cool," he replied. "Does that mean we can do more dives?" "It means the council wants to study your methods, possibly expand them." They are intrigued. Intrigued is good. Intrigued beats terrified. They are also terrified, but intrigued. Even better. Captain Vasquez set down her tablet. "Monitor Thane, are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying," I replied carefully, "that you humans may have accidentally revolutionized aquatic research protocols across the entire galaxy. And now everyone wants to know if this insanity is teachable." "Oh, it is definitely teachable," Milo said, grinning wider. "Question is whether anyone else is brave enough to try." He was right to question that, because after 3 decades of safe, remote, carefully controlled research, the idea of actually entering the water was about to divide the entire scientific community. And it was all because humans looked at a freezing alien ocean and thought, "Yeah, I want to swim in that." Absolute madness. I could not wait to see what happened next. The fallout from my report was immediate and quite frankly spectacular. Within 48 hours I received 317 messages from colleagues across the galaxy. 142 were expressing concern for my mental health. 98 were requesting detailed protocols. 63 were demanding I retract the report immediately. And 14, bless their curious hearts, were asking when they could meet the humans who apparently had no survival instincts whatsoever. The Galactic Maritime Council convened an emergency session, which sounds impressive until you realize that in bureaucratic terms, emergency means they scheduled a meeting only 2 weeks out instead of the usual 6 months. Still, for them, this was basically panic mode. Commander Trilax Vorn, head of the council, contacted me personally. He was a Grithian, which meant he looked like someone had crossed a bear with a squid and given it far too many opinions. His specialty was deep space oceanic surveys, and he had absolutely zero patience for what he called, quote, "dangerous nonsense," unquote. "Monitor Thane," he began, his voice crackling through my communication terminal. "I have read your report 4 times, hoping that each subsequent reading would make it sound less like the fever dream of someone who consumed toxic substances. I have been disappointed 4 times. Commander Vorn, I replied diplomatically. I understand the methods are unconventional. Unconventional? Inconventional? His tentacles flailed in agitation. Thane, they entered the water, voluntarily, with their actual bodies. This is not unconventional. This is suicidal. Yet they survived, and gathered valuable data. A person could survive jumping off a cliff if they wore proper equipment. That does not make it good scientific methodology. With respect, Commander, the data speaks for itself. The humans' identified ecosystem structures our instruments completely missed. Their direct observations provided context our remote systems cannot capture. Or, Bourne countered, they got lucky and did not die, and now you are romanticizing reckless behavior. This was going well. Permission to speak freely, sir. When has lack of permission ever stopped you, Thane? Fair point. I spent 37 cycles perfecting remote observation protocols. I built my entire career on the principle that direct contact with hostile environments is unnecessary and dangerous. And I still believe that, mostly. But watching the humans work, seeing what they discovered in 20 minutes that our instruments missed in 3 years, I have to wonder if we have become so focused on safety that we have sacrificed understanding. There was a long pause, then Vorik Thane sighed, a sound like steam escaping from a pressure valve. You are not wrong, he admitted reluctantly. The Council has been reviewing the data. The biological diversity estimates alone would justify a complete resurvey of Tethys Prime. The magnetic ecosystem theory Dr. Patel proposed could revolutionize our understanding of subsurface oceans. And the substrate analysis, those quote living rock formations unquote they documented, that is actually groundbreaking work. Do you agree the methods have merit? I agree. The results have merit. The methods still terrify me, but he continued before I could respond. The Council wants a demonstration, full documentation, multiple species observing. If we are going to consider adopting any form of direct observation protocols, we need to see exactly what these humans do and how they do it safely. They will be pleased to hear that. I am certain they will. I am equally certain I will regret this decision. Schedule it for 3 weeks from now, and Thane, make sure they understand that the entire future of aquatic research methodology is riding on this. No pressure. He disconnected before I could point out that telling someone there is no pressure immediately after explaining how much pressure there is does not actually reduce the pressure. I found the humans in Lab 7 again. Milo was in the observation tank, naturally apparently having convinced someone to let him install what he called, quote, enrichment features, unquote, for the Kelterus drifter. These included several rock formations, some artificial current generators, and what looked suspiciously like toys. It was bored, he explained, when I arrived, surfacing and pulling himself out of the tank. Smart predators need mental stimulation or they get depressed. Trust me, we learned this the hard way with dolphins back on Earth. You are worried about an alien creature's mental health? Of course, just because we are studying it does not mean we should make it miserable. Besides, happy subjects give better behavioral data. Stressed animals act weird. This was either very enlightened or very strange. Possibly both. I relayed Commander Vorn's message to the assembled team. Captain Viscays listened carefully, nodding at appropriate points. Dr. Tanaka immediately started making notes about equipment demonstrations. Lieutenant Ko looked unconcerned, which seemed to be his default expression. Dr. Patel seemed excited, and Milo grinned like someone had just offered him free dessert for life. A demonstration, he said, for the entire Galactic Maritime Council. No pressure at all. That is what Commander Vor said. He was being sarcastic, right? Possibly. It is hard to tell with Grithians. Well, Captain Vasquez said, taking charge, we have 3 weeks to prepare. We need to design a comprehensive demonstration that shows not just what we do, but why we do it and how other species could adapt the methodology. Also, we should probably not die during it, Dr. Patel added. That would undermine our credibility. Good point. Put that in the safety protocols. Do not die. Over the next 3 weeks, Station Brine transformed into something between a research facility and a performance venue. The humans prepared exhaustively, planning every aspect of their demonstration. They created training materials, safety documentation, equipment specifications, and contingency protocols for scenarios I had never even considered. What if you encounter a territorial predator? I asked during one planning session. Back away slowly, maintain eye contact if it has eyes, avoid threatening gestures, Milo recited, standard procedure. What if your suit develops a leak? Emergency ascent, activate backup oxygen, surface immediately, already covered. What if you get disoriented at depth? Follow the tether line, check instruments, communicate with surface team. Basic training. What if you panic? He looked at me seriously for the first time. Then I abort the dive. Panic kills divers. Monitor Thane, we train extensively to prevent it. But if it happens, you get out. No shame in that. The ocean will still be there tomorrow. You have an answer for everything. We have been doing this a long time. Humans started exploring our oceans thousands of years ago. People died. We learned. We improved. We kept going. This, he gestured around the station, this is just us applying centuries of hard-won experience to new environments. Meanwhile, representatives from dozens of species began arriving. The Hydrani sent a delegation, though they looked physically ill at the prospect of watching someone enter water. The Kelthani came with extensive recording equipment. The Brexians, the Korthaxi, the Menix, species I had never even worked with before, all showing up to witness this bizarre human custom. The scientific community was split roughly into 3 camps. The traditionalists, who viewed the entire thing as dangerous nonsense. The curious, who were willing to suspend judgment and see what happened. And what Milo called the secret thrill-seekers. Species who would never admit it publicly but were clearly fascinated by the idea of doing something so completely reckless. Kelvin Ruth had an interesting reaction. He spent hours with Dr. Tanaka, going over equipment specifications, asking increasingly detailed questions about suit design and safety systems. At first I thought he was looking for flaws to critique. Then I realized he was actually considering trying it himself. "You cannot be serious," I said when he admitted as much. "Why not?" he asked. "The humans have proven it can be done safely. The data benefits are undeniable. And honestly, Monitor Thane, are you not even a little bit curious?" I was. That was the problem. Watching Milo in the water, seeing that strange grace, that complete comfort in an environment that should be hostile. Something in me responded to it. Some ancient part of my brain that remembered when my ancestors were aquatic, millions of years ago before we crawled onto land and declared ourselves too civilized for such things. But curiosity and stupidity often look very similar from the outside. The day of the demonstration arrived with perfect weather, which is ironic for an underwater event, but somehow felt appropriate. The observation deck was packed with over 200 beings from 47 different species. The energy in the room was electric, a mixture of anticipation and dread. Commander Vorin arrived an hour early, inspecting everything personally. He examined the moon pool, the safety equipment, the medical facilities, the backup systems, and the backup systems for the backup systems. He interviewed each human team member. He reviewed protocols, until I thought he would wear grooves in his data pad. Finally, he approached me. "This is really happening." "Yes, sir. If this goes wrong, both our careers are finished." "Yes, sir. If it goes right, we might change scientific methodology for the next 1,000 years. Also, yes, sir." He made that steam-escaping sound again. "I hate everything about this, and I cannot wait to see what happens." The demonstration began with a briefing. Captain Vasquez stood before the assembled crowd and explained the history of human ocean exploration, showing images of ancient diving equipment, early submarines, modern research vessels. She walked everyone through the progression of technology and technique, showing how humans had learned to survive and thrive in aquatic environments. "We do not do this because it is easy," she said. "We do this because oceans cover most of our planet, and we needed to understand them, not from above, not from a distance, but from within. Every technique we will show you today was developed through trial and error. Every safety protocol exists because someone before us made a mistake and we learned from it. This is not reckless. This is careful application of accumulated knowledge." Dr. Patel followed with the scientific justification, presenting side-by-side comparisons of remote versus direct observation data. The differences were stark. The instruments gave numbers. The humans gave insights. Then Dr. Tanaka explained the equipment in exhaustive detail, showing how each component worked, how systems backed up other systems, how failures were prevented or mitigated. She was thorough to the point of tedium, which I think was intentional. She wanted everyone to understand that this was not improvisation. This was engineering. Finally, it was time for the actual dive. Milo, Dr. Patel, and Lieutenant Ko suited up in full view of the crowd. Every step was explained. Every check was verified. Every safety measure was demonstrated. "Right now," Milo said, his voice carrying through the observation deck speakers, "you are probably thinking we are crazy. That is okay, we get that a lot. But watch what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. Then decide." They approached the moon pool. The crowd pressed forward, everyone wanting the best view. I noticed Kelvin at the front, eyes wide, barely breathing. And then, just like before, the humans stepped into the water. But this time everything was different. This time we were watching with intention. This time we understood what we were seeing. The descent was textbook perfect. Controlled, measured, every movement precise. They reached the 50-meter mark and began their survey, and Dr. Patel provided running commentary. Temperature -0.5 degrees, pressure 5.9 atmospheres, current moving northeast at 0.4 meters per second, visibility excellent. Beginning biological survey. The cameras captured everything. Milo approaching the bioluminescent bacterial colonies, collecting samples with delicate precision. Lieutenant Ko documenting the substrate composition, his movements, economical and practiced. Dr. Patel measuring current patterns, her observations adding context to instrumental readings. "There," Milo said, pointing to a rock formation. "You see how the water flows around this structure? Your instruments would read that as simple fluid dynamics. But watch what happens when I disturb the flow." He moved his hand through the current, creating a small eddy. Immediately, tiny organisms emerged from the substrate. feeding on particles caught in the disturbance. This is opportunistic feeding behavior, he explained. These organisms have adapted to micro-turbulence events, probably caused by larger creatures swimming past. Your remote systems would never trigger this response because they do not create the right kind of disturbance. You need something alive, something moving organically, to see how the ecosystem actually functions. Around me I heard murmurs of understanding. Even the traditionalists had to admit this was data they would not have gotten otherwise. The dive continued. At one point, a small swimming creature approached Lieutenant Ko. Instead of fleeing, he held perfectly still, allowing it to investigate him. The creature circled him 3 times, apparently decided he was neither food nor threat, and swam away. Contact like that, Lieutenant Ko said, tells us about predator-prey relationships, threat assessment behavior, territorial patterns, all things you can theorize from remote data, but this confirms it directly. 30 minutes into the dive, something unexpected happened. A second creature appeared, larger than the first, roughly 4 meters long, with a body plan nobody had documented before. It moved slowly, deliberately, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in complex sequences. Unknown species, Dr. Patel said calmly. Maintaining distance. James, stay on my 6. Milo, you getting this? Recording. Milo confirmed. Look at those light patterns. That is definitely communication. Possibly between individuals, possibly with other species. The creature circled the humans, maintaining exactly 3 meters of distance. It made one complete orbit, then a second, then a third. The light patterns changed with each pass, growing more complex. It is asking us something, Milo said quietly. Or telling us something. The repetition, the variations, that is not random. Can you understand it? Someone in the observation deck asked. No, Milo admitted. But now we know we should try. This is communication, meaning there is intelligence here, or at least complex behavior. Your remote observations classified this ecosystem as simple bacterial colonies with basic swimmers. But this is something more. The creature made one final pass, then swam off into the darkness. The bioluminescent patterns faded slowly like a conversation ending. The observation deck was completely silent. Did that just happen? Kelvin whispered beside me. Yes, I said, equally quiet. It did. The humans continued their survey, documenting everything they found, but the encounter with the unknown creature had changed something. Even the most skeptical observers now understood what direct observation could reveal. Not just data, but context. Not just measurements, but meaning. When the humans finally surfaced, the observation deck erupted. Not in applause, exactly. Most species present did not express appreciation that way, but in a cacophony of excited discussion. Everyone was talking at once, comparing observations, debating implications, asking questions. Commander Vorn approached the moon pool edge as the humans climbed out. His expression was unreadable. Well, he said finally, that was educational. Is that good or bad, sir? Captain Vasquez asked, removing her helmet. Yes, he replied. Then after a pause, you have made my job significantly more complicated. Half the council will want to ban this immediately. The other half will want to mandate it for all future surveys. And I, he sighed deeply, will have to figure out how to write regulations for something I still think is completely insane. But effective, Milo interjected. But effective, Orn agreed reluctantly. The creature you encountered, the one with the communication patterns, do you understand what you have potentially discovered? An intelligent species, Dr. Patel said, or at least a species with complex social behavior that mimics intelligence. On a moon we have been surveying for 15 years. Vork continued. 15 years of remote observation, and we never suspected, because we were not asking the right questions. Or rather, we were not present in a way that allowed the questions to be answered. He looked at the assembled crowd, then back at the humans. You have proven your point. Direct observation, when done safely and properly, can provide insights remote systems cannot. The question now is what we do with that information. Over the next week, that question dominated every conversation on Station Brine. The traditionalists argued that the risks outweighed the benefits, that one successful dive did not justify abandoning proven safe methods. The curious countered that safety and effectiveness were not mutually exclusive, that protocols could be developed to minimize risk while maximizing scientific gain. And the secret thrill seekers, Those who would never admit it publicly started asking Milo for diving lessons. The first to officially request training was, to my complete lack of surprise, Kelvin Ruth. "I want to try," he announced during a staff meeting. "Under controlled conditions with full safety measures, but I want to experience what the humans described." "You are aware that this goes against every instinct our species possesses?" I asked. "I am aware," he said firmly. "I am also aware that scientific progress often requires going against instinct. We evolved to fear water because our distant ancestors drowned in it. But we also evolved intelligence specifically to overcome our limitations. The humans proved that fear can be managed, that proper equipment and training make the impossible possible." He was not wrong, and looking around the room I saw similar expressions on other faces. Curiosity winning out over fear. The desire to understand overcoming the instinct to avoid. "Very well," I said, "but we start small. Tank training only. No open water until you can demonstrate complete competency in controlled conditions." Agreed. Captain Vasquez and her team took to the training program with the same thoroughness they brought to everything else. They started with theory, pressure physics, thermodynamics, gas behavior, decompression protocols. They covered emergency procedures, equipment maintenance, communication systems. They were patient, methodical, and absolutely refused to let anyone near the water until they could recite safety protocols in their sleep. Kelvin proved an apt student. His initial fear, which was considerable, gradually transformed into cautious confidence. The first time he submerged his face in water, he panicked and surfaced immediately. The humans did not laugh or criticize. They simply explained that panic was normal, that overcoming it took time and practice. "Fear is not weakness," Milo told him. "Fear is your brain doing its job. The trick is not to eliminate fear but to work with it. Acknowledge it. Understand it. Then do what needs to be done anyway." By the second week, Kelvin could float calmly in the shallow training tank. By the third, he was diving to 3 meters. By the fourth, he completed a full submersion to 8 meters, including controlled ascent with safety stops. The day he emerged from that dive, his expression was something I will never forget. Wonder. Pure, unfiltered wonder. "I felt it," he said, still dripping. "The water, the pressure, the way it holds you, it is terrifying and amazing and completely unlike anything I have ever experienced." "Welcome to the addiction," Milo grinned. "It only gets better from here." News of the training program spread quickly. Within a month I had 17 formal requests from various species wanting to learn human diving techniques. The Galactic Maritime Council, after extensive debate and probably several stress-induced medical emergencies, approved a pilot training program. Limited enrollment, strict safety standards, comprehensive documentation, and somehow, inexplicably, I found myself in charge of it. "You are uniquely qualified," Commander Vorn explained when he assigned me the role. "You understand both traditional methodology and human innovation. You have the trust of both the scientific community and the human team. And most importantly, you are too stubborn to let this fail." "That is not a qualification, sir." "In this case, it absolutely is." So Station Brine became, in addition to a research facility, a training center. The humans taught diving theory and practice. I taught research protocols and data integration. Together we developed a curriculum that respected both human experience and galactic safety standards. The first graduating class consisted of 7 individuals from 5 different species. Kelvin Ruth was the top performer, which surprised nobody. There was also Thessia Morn, a Hydroni who overcame millennia of cultural water phobia through sheer determination. Brix, Havilon, a Korthaxi whose natural buoyancy actually made them a remarkably efficient swimmer. Gix, Prothean, Lorcas, and Millivox from various other species, each bringing their own perspective and challenges. And me. Yes. Me. I held out for 2 months, insisting I was too old, too set in my ways, too busy with administrative duties. Milo called my excuses creative, but unconvincing. Kelvin pointed out that I could not effectively run a diving program without understanding diving. Captain Vasquez simply said that she thought I would regret it if I did not at least try. She was right, of course. My first time in the water was humiliating. I panicked at 2 meters, hyperventilated into my regulator, and had to be helped back to the surface by Milo and Lieutenant Ko. I was certain this proved I was not meant for such activities. "That was great," Milo said cheerfully. I panicked and nearly drowned in a controlled tank. That is not great. You got in the water, he countered. That is great. Everything else is just practice. It took me 3 weeks to complete what Kelvin had done in 4. I was slower, more cautious, fighting my instincts every meter of descent. But gradually something changed. The fear did not disappear, but it became manageable. Background noise rather than overwhelming static. And then one day, I found myself at 8 meters depth, hanging neutrally buoyant in the water, and I realized I was not thinking about being scared. I was thinking about how the light filtered through the water, how the temperature gradients felt against my suit, how the Kelterus drifter was watching me with what might have been curiosity. I was present in the moment, in the environment, part of it rather than separate from it. I understood. The graduation dive for our first class was scheduled for a real ocean descent to 30 meters in Tethys Prime. All 7 students, accompanied by the full human team and extensive safety support. Commander Vorn himself attended, though he watched from the observation deck rather than joining us. Absolutely not, he had said when Milo suggested he try diving. I support this program. I approve of its goals. I am even proud of its accomplishments. But I am not getting in the water. Some traditions are worth keeping. The dive was spectacular. 7 beings from 5 different species, moving through an alien ocean, working together to conduct a survey that combined the best of remote observation technology with direct experience. We documented new species, we mapped unexplored territory, we collected data that would take months to analyze. But more than that, we experienced something together. Across species barriers, across cultural differences, across millions of years of separate evolution, we shared a moment of wonder in the depths of an alien sea. When we surfaced cold and tired and exhilarated, I saw my students' faces and knew we had created something important, not just a training program, not just a new methodology, but a bridge between fear and understanding, between safety and discovery, between what we had always done and what we might become. Not bad for a bunch of first-timers, Milo said, grinning as always. Give it a few more years, you might actually get good at this. A few more years? I spluttered. I am retiring in 2 years. Sure you are. That is what I said when I graduated college. That was 12 years ago. He had a point. The ocean, once experienced, tends to keep calling you back. Over the following months, the program expanded. More students, more facilities, more species learning to overcome their fear of water. The Galactic Maritime Council established formal standards for direct aquatic observation. Research stations across the galaxy began incorporating diving protocols into their survey work. Papers were published, methodologies were refined, careers were built, and everywhere the story spread. About the humans who looked at an alien ocean and decided to swim in it. About the scientists who overcame millions of years of instinct to follow them. About how sometimes progress requires not just new technology, but new courage. The unknown creature we had encountered, the one with the communication patterns, became the focus of intensive study. A team including Dr. Patel and 3 of our graduated students spent 6 months documenting its behavior. They discovered it was not one species but a symbiotic relationship between multiple organisms, working together to create patterns of bioluminescence that other species in the ecosystem responded to. A communication network, essentially right under our remote sensors, completely missed because we had never been present in the right way to observe it. The paper they published won 3 major scientific awards and fundamentally changed our understanding of subsurface ocean ecosystems. Station Brine became a destination for researchers from across the galaxy. Some came for the training, some came for the equipment, some came simply to meet the humans who had started it all, to ask them why they did it, how they convinced themselves to take that first step into the water. The answers varied. Milo said it was because staying on land would be boring. Dr. Patel said it was the logical extension of scientific curiosity. Lieutenant Ko said someone had to keep the others from doing something stupid unsupervised. Dr. Tanaka said she just wanted to see if their equipment would work, and then it did, so why stop? Captain Vasquez said it was her job to lead, and sometimes that meant leading by example into places that seemed impossible. But I think the real answer was simpler. Humans are explorers. It is fundamental to who they are. They see boundaries and want to cross them. They encounter danger and want to understand it. They find the unknown and need to experience it, not because it is safe. because it matters. 1 year after that first demonstration dive, the Galactic Maritime Council hosted a symposium on direct observation techniques. Over 3,000 scientists attended. Commander Vorik Thane gave the opening address, and his words stuck with me. "We spent millions of years developing technology to protect us from hostile environments," he said. "And that technology is valuable, necessary, life-saving. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that protection and understanding are not the same thing. The humans reminded us of that. They showed us that sometimes, to truly know a place, you have to be willing to enter it, to feel it around you, to exist within it even briefly, even dangerously." He paused, his tentacles making a gesture I had learned indicated deep thought. "I am not suggesting we abandon caution. I am not advocating recklessness. But I am saying that the humans have given us a gift. They have shown us that fear, while valid, does not have to be limiting. That with proper preparation, with good equipment, with training and protocols and respect for the dangers involved, we can do things we thought impossible." He looked directly at where the human team was sitting. "They jumped into an alien ocean, and they taught us to jump with them. For that we owe them our gratitude." The applause that followed was genuine and prolonged. I saw Milo looking uncomfortable with the attention, which was oddly endearing. He was fine with diving into unknown danger but embarrassed by public recognition. Later that evening, I found him at one of the observation windows, looking down at Tethys Prime as it hung in space below us. "Thinking about your next crazy idea?" I asked. "Always," he admitted. "There are so many oceans out there, so many places we have not explored. This was just one moon around one planet. What else are we missing because we are too scared to look or too sensible to look? Same thing. Sometimes." He glanced at me. "You going to keep diving after you retire?" "I have not decided." "Liar, you have already planned your next dive." "I can tell." He was right, of course. There was a deep trench on Tethys Prime 300 meters down that remote surveys suggested might contain hydrothermal vents. I wanted to see them personally, to feel the warm water rising through the cold, to watch whatever organisms clustered around those vents, living off chemicals and energy in the complete darkness. I wanted to experience it, not just document it. "The galaxy thinks you are insane," I told him. "You know that, right?" "Yeah," he agreed easily. "But they also think we are right, which is nice. It changed everything. You know that too? We just did what came naturally. You all changed yourselves. That is harder. That is braver. Honestly. And we grew up swimming. You had to overcome millions of years of evolution telling you water equals death. That takes real courage." We watched Tethys Prime rotating slowly beneath us, its frozen surface hiding the vast ocean below. An ocean I had studied remotely for years, an ocean I now knew personally, had moved through, had experienced. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for jumping in first, for showing us it was possible." "Thank you for jumping in after," he replied, "for trusting us enough to try." We stood there in comfortable silence, two beings from different worlds, watching an alien ocean and thinking about all the oceans yet to explore. Somewhere down there in the dark, the creature with the bioluminescent communication patterns was probably having conversations we did not understand yet. Somewhere, organisms were adapting to environments we had not documented. Somewhere, mysteries waited. And now, finally, we had the courage to find them. The water had always been there. Humans just taught us to stop being afraid of it. Or rather, to be afraid and dive in anyway, which, when you think about it, is the most human thing possible. 2 years later, I stood at the edge of another moon pool, on another station, preparing for a dive into an ocean of liquid hydrocarbons on Titan. Beside me stood Kelvin Ruth, now a certified dive master training his own students. Beside him stood Thessia Morn, whose breakthrough paper on comparative aquatic adaptations had revolutionized the field. And beside her stood 3 humans, including Milo Brennan, still grinning, still ready to jump into the unknown. "Ready?" Milo asked. I checked my equipment one final time. Temperature -179 degrees Celsius, pressure 2.5 atmospheres, liquid methane and ethane instead of water, completely alien chemistry. Potential for unknown organisms, adapted to conditions that should not support life. Terrifying. Amazing. "Ready," I confirmed. And together, humans and non-humans, we stepped off the edge and fell into wonder. Because that is what explorers do. We find the scariest thing in the universe, the most impossible challenge, the greatest unknown, and we dive in.